Hello and welcome to a 3-game 1v1 set between Mana and Kiwian. This is, of course, the betas of the Stormgate Early Access, and we are taking a look at a set between two high-level players that has been made on the Devastator branch. Now, a couple of disclaimers about this set over here as we'll head into this matchup. First of all, we will have Intil Kiwian playing as the Vanguard, and down south it is going to be Mana, and I kind of missed what he's playing, but I think he's playing Infernals, if I'm not mistaken, in purple. Yeah, he's playing Infernals. So, this is the Devastator branch of the game, which is little old. There is a new version, but still, these sets are very recent, and they have been provided to us by Frost Giant to get some costs going, while everybody is waiting for the first open opportunity to play the game. That Scout coming in with a little harassment here, something that you very commonly see from Vanguard, especially against the Infernals, but you should not be able to do much of a damage with it. As long as you are inside that Shroud aura near the Shrine, you just have that white health regen, and that's something that's going to keep all of your imps alive. Now, what's probably more important is that there was a bit of a diversion by the Scout. This is something that allowed a bit of a delay here on this second Shrine, potentially. It also damaged some of these imps, but overall, these Scouts don't really do much of a damage when it comes to just a single Scout at the beginning of the game. It's more about that harassment element that you're looking at. Also, mandatory disclaimer. This is among the first games I'm casting in Stormgate. It's actually not the first set. I've already done a set between Mana and Vortex, which was an Infernal Mirror. But, you know, I'm still in the process of learning this game as many other people are, so bear with me. And of course, every feedback is very much appreciated. Now, individually, these Scouts are fairly weak, but they do train fairly quickly, and that's part of the reason why our teal player, Kiwian, is able to push this Brute back here. And this is big because, as you see, the fight is happening for this one resource camp. Now, on this map, you actually have 4 resource camps in the middle. There is just one right next to the one that was taken just now by Kiwian. There's a vision camp, and there are 2 resource camps closer to the player's bases as well. So having that initial map control is immensely valuable because you can get yourself a bunch of extra Luminite from these early resource camps. Hopefully the audio balance is going to be fine because, again, we are provided clean VODs of these games. So if they change the audio levels between the games, it's actually a little difficult to find out. So let me know if the audio is fine. Again, hopefully production value is going to increase over time, but we are still in the early stages of this game. Now this is big. Mr. Bobby Bob coming in to cut through the trees, opening up a brand new avenue to hit this second base from. Now, I do believe that we have a couple of static defenses by Mana to the right of this expansion, that second Shrine. So cutting through these trees allows Kiwian to flank around with these Scouts and hit the base right away. Now, I think he missed some of those fiends just running past him, and indeed he did. That second base expansion denied altogether here by the fiends and the brutes. That second command post is not going to go up anytime soon, but there's the counterattack. Quite a few of these Scouts moving in there very quick. And as you see, they pack a big punch when you have quite a few of them. All of these imps have to just migrate towards that expansion position. Very good find here by Kiwian, so many of these imps going down. And that is just too bad here for Mana. He himself was able to hit the base of Kiwian, but you have that feeling that many of these imps fell a lot more than what you have on the other side. Now, keep in mind, of course, that there was a second base for Mana, which means that he is supposed to have a lot more workers than his counterpart, although the Infernals do consume their workers, the imps, when they construct buildings, unlike the Vanguard. But still, you have the feeling that these Scouts found a lot of good value for themselves. Nice micro here by Kiwian, just running circles around the enemy. He kind of needs this little resting period, quote-unquote, because he needs to get his own second base up, which was the light. He's actually finding a lot of good value here with these Scouts. Was able to find quite a few of those imps, and looks like Mana just had enough. he just switched all of his brutes into fiends so he can actually track down these scouts. A third base is up though for Mana. So he's still right there with 3 bases compared to just 2. And the worker count doesn't look astonishing here for Kiwian either. You just have a handful of workers up here on the front line. He probably has a full Luminite mine back at home. A couple of Exos making their way through here, which will help this turret quite a bit. Fiends moving in. Bob's being overcharged, should be able to repel all these Fiends for the time being. Right now, Mana just waiting for that overcharge to cool down, and then he's going to strike again, or at least he's going to attempt doing so. Try and take down the one habitat. Exos, you gotta be careful with them. You see, they can get killed very easily when they get surrounded like that. But they are range units, and as long as you can micro them away, they can pick off these Fiends fairly quickly. Cleanup is complete here by Kiwian. He's now safe with that second base, but third base, as we've discussed, is already up here for Mana. Resource camps are recharging. You see 10 seconds on this one, 40 on the adjacent one, so timing could be nice here for Kiwian. He was the one who took the first batch of these resource camps, and now he should be able to take this one. Maybe he's trying to bait out some of those brutes. He actually took out the Shroud Stone, and now he's going for his own turret placement here. You can task multiple Bobs to build a single building, so you can rush these buildings up fairly quickly, and a tower here would deny this very important Luminite mine for Mana. Brutes moving in. They do have quite some white health. Not a lot of Exos nearby, though. In fact, just a handful of them. Kind of getting surrounded here in this choke point. Some of those brutes switching into Fiends. Tower is complete, though. And I think there is a unit garrisoned inside. It must be an Exo. And now this tower is enough to repel some of these brutes. New scouts are coming in. New Exos on the way as well. But I think it looks like these Gaunts, it's not Gaunts, actually. It's brutes taking out this tower. A little chaotic, but ultimately it looks like the tower has been cleaned up, but most of the army from Mana also was lost in the process. Now, the reason why this is big is because, again, those resource camps are now available once again, and it should be Kiwian who is able to take them. Unfortunately, in this current costing UI, we don't really have any insight on the overall supply of the players. No worker counts available. So it's a little difficult to tell the exact status of the game from the supply, the army count, the eco count. But you have that feeling that when it comes to the raw worker count, Mana should be ahead by quite a bit with that third base. Third base is now up to the north here by Kiwian as well. But Kiwian's been leveraging these Luminite deposits, the resource camps, very well. And that's something that's offsetting some of that eco differential. Vision Camp being attacked over here, but this is a bad timing from Mana. He aggroed the chicken, and now he's being attacked by both the chicken and his opponent. Good use of, I guess, this little opportunity by Kiwian. His opponent attacking the chicken retaliating, and he's able to push away his opponent. He is going to be the one that secures this Vision Camp to the south. Shroud Stone, expanding the Shroud Aura, as well as providing a static defense point here for Mana. He's expecting a push potentially on this third shrine, but in general, his base is fairly condensed. He's got static defenses, he's got the Shroud Aura covering most of his base. So wherever he goes, he's going to have that white health regen. Remember that this tree line has it's still open. And with that second resource camp gone, I could see Kiwian trying to use this opening once again to hit this second shrine that his opponent has. Little oversaturation on that Luminite mine there for Kiwian, something that he's going to have to resolve. And oh, look at that, the meat farm is actually blocking the entry point. So unless you bring a Bob or a Vulcan to get through this line of trees, you actually cannot get in. Well, unless you destroy the meat farm, which is something that Kiwian did. Still, reinforcements arrived, so he wasn't able to break into the enemy base, and a new meat farm might just be built here by Mana to make sure he's not gonna get surprised again. Third base up there for Kiwian. He's also moving towards Therium, so I expect to see some mechs very soon. Still, he has this Luminite mine oversaturated. Now he's starting to split off some of those bobs. And one thing I'm noticing here is that with the 4th base being dropped to the south by Mana, he's still playing a very defensive game. He's barely moving out of his base. Obviously, when you have so many static defenses and when you have the Shroud Aura giving you this shield, you probably want to fight these units in that Shroud Aura to maximize the efficiency of these troops. So this might be one of those moments where Mana is just booming up with all these bases, and he's waiting for an opportunity to take a decisive fight against aggression. Now, some medtechs have been mixed in, and they themselves, of course, aside from being able to heal nearby troops, they also have some combat capabilities, but they are primarily a support unit, as the speed camp is now being taken. Now, this is big because you have a lot of exos here, and those exos will benefit a lot from the speed, and it looks like, I think the vision camp has shown this army passing, and that's part of the reason why Kiwian just decided to head south and take out that expansion base. Now, looks like Mana is just marching straight into the enemy base. Kiwian is going to take out that one expansion, but Mana is out here to do a lot of damage. A couple of Exos making their way back here, but Infestation is coming in, and with the stuns coming in from the Magmadons as well, this army is just not given a chance here from Kiwian. He's overcharging the Bobs, trying to fight off some of those brutes, but when you switch them into Fiends, they will do a lot of damage. And those units are infested as well. Infested units once again turning into Fiends. So all of these Bobs have just been turned into Fiends here that support the army of Mana. And Kiwian, you know, it's kind of turning into base trade here to a certain extent until you realize that Kiwian is getting cleaned up over here by all these Fiends. His medtechs are getting taken out, all the Exos are gone, and as much as he lost one base, he made the decision to just march into the enemy base, sacrificing that one expansion shrine. And now he's doing a lot of damage once again. Those Magmadons jumping in and stunning all these overcharged Bobs. It's immensely valuable just to give him a little bit more time to pick those off, a little bit more time to infest them, especially now with Gaunts having been mixed into this army. Another lovely stun here by the Magmadons. They do get taken out as they are surrounded, but that stun that he's able to do is immensely valuable. Medtech, of course, coming in here to help, and all these infested units will survive for the time being. Still, a lot of damage has been done here to Kiwian. He lost his second command post. He does have a third and a fourth now, but it's not just the command post having been lost. It's also the fact that he has lost a lot of Bobs in that fight. I think resource camps are close to being recharged in the middle, and that's part of the reason why Mana is now posturing towards them. Indeed, the vision camp is clean, and in the middle we have quite a few purple units, so I think he's about to take those resource camps, but looks like he has enough to try and push another expansion here. This base to the left, completely undefended. Bobs will have to flee, but that is once again great value for Mana, and you're starting to see him leveraging that massive worker count that he was able to build while playing very defensive. And also, the fact that he was able to push into the enemy base and just do a devastating amount of damage on the enemy eco, now his numbers are looking a lot superior. Of course, these Exos, if you micro them properly, they can take out a lot of these melee troops very quickly, and some Vulcan have been mixed in as well. Now, Vulcan themselves are no joke. They can stun just like the Magmadons can, but they can also dispatch low HP melee units very quickly. So, once you have these Vulcans on the field, all those Fiends can get wiped out very quickly. Beautiful stun here by the Magmadon once again. Nice micro with the Exos. All the troops having been infested. Here come the Fiends. And it looks like, once again, stun plus Fiend combination is just something that these Exos can't really deal with. Beautiful jump. Two of those Magmadons once again stunning this army. Slowly but surely, the Exos seem to be cleaning up most of these troops, but casualties are massive on the side of Kiwian here as well. And it looks like he might not even have enough to clean this up. All of his troops are infested, and those infested troops turning into Fiends is probably what snowballs this game. Kiwian types GG, and Mana is going to take game number 1. There we go. Takes a couple of seconds until these games finish, but that was a GG typed. Alright, heading into game number 2 here. Mana is once again going to be playing the purple color. And on the other side, Kiwian is playing with the teal. Two usual colors of this game. And Mana is going to be in command of the Infernals here. And on the other side, it is going to be, of course, Kiwian with, once again, the Vanguard. But this map is very, very different from the one that we've played previously. Players spawn a lot closer to each other. And when you look at this map, one thing that you could notice is the double Luminite deposit in front of your base. Very tempting, but something that you only expand to in late game or at a later stage of the game. Most players seem to prefer that safe spot to the left of your starting command post. Same as in the previous game, Kiwian active with that one scout, trying to do some harassment. If nothing else, you idle some of these imps, and that's already reasonable value here for that one scout. Don't forget, of course, you can start massing scouts very quickly. They train very, very quickly. So this is just one scout out there to harass and slow down the enemy, as that imp is likely heading out for a second shrine to be built. Will be scouted immediately, of course, by Kiwian. Let's see how he's going to approach this. There is a barracks out there already. And he's got a second scout there as well. Once again, he's playing heavily into scouts here, as we've seen him do in the previous game. While we are at this early stage of the game, I think this is where I have to mention that Frost Giant is closing in on their Patreon campaign. Patreon? What am I talking about? Their Kickstarter campaign. I think they have 2 more days left until January 31st. So if you want to support them, I will leave a link down in the description where you can get some Founders packages and stuff like that for Stormgate. And of course, big shout out goes to Frost Giant for arranging these raw feed videos being provided to us casters, so we can cast some games, get some practice going while we do not have access to the game. So second base already out there for Mana. In the previous game, it worked very well for him to play a more defensive and eco-focused game, just using the Shroud aura to buff his army whenever he needed to make a stand against the attacks, and then eventually just grind down his opponent with massive numbers. And that's something that the Infernals are extremely powerful at. They are really good at snowballing games, especially because of Infestation. So if you can hold off these initial attacks with limited casualties, and you have a more powerful eco than your opponent, then it's actually fairly easy to snowball a game out of control. Resource camp taken here by Mana. The one to the north has been taken by Kiwian. On this map, you have one resource camp for both of these players. But what's more important, as you see, Conclave coming in here fairly early. That's an early Conclave, I must say. And what am I seeing here? This is going to be a tower. 4 Bobs moving up. Kiwian is going to try to tower that Luminite deposit. There's only one Exo guarding these troops, though. And there's already a Shroud Stone as well. A lot of Shroud Aura. Multiple Shroud Stones defending this expansion here for Mana. He's playing a very defensive game so far. Ooh, Fiends moving in, intercepting an Exo. Good value there. Bobs also were overcharged, and they are not working right now, as indeed, these Bobs do get found. Tower is being focused down, Meat Farm being built fairly quickly, Brutes moving in, and this tower should not go up here for Kiwian. It actually does, but at the end of the day, this is going to get taken out very, very quickly, or it should be taken out, I would assume, but now with an Exo Garrison inside, it's a little bit more tricky, especially with the Bobs committing to the repairs. I might have spoken too soon. Still, you do have 2 Meat Farms over here nearby, spawning some of those defensive units for the Infernals, the Full Hogs. And it looks like this static defense point, or more like offense point, to be honest, for Kiwian, is actually doing a lot more damage than I anticipated. It's not something that is killing eco right now, but it's definitely forcing a lot of commitment onto the defense from his opponent. And don't forget, Infernals consume their imps when they build buildings, so every Meat Farm you drop, every Shroud Stone you drop that needs to be built for this defense to happen is essentially -1 worker from the opposing player. At the same time, this is a big investment for Kiwian. He was on one base for a long time, and he's investing multiple Bobs to this aggression. So his eco isn't necessarily astonishing either. Still, this is now an extremely difficult position to break out of for Mana, especially with those double towers now up for Kiwian. And you see, he is creeping closer and closer. Now, he's got so much firepower that he's starting to take out those Shroud Stones as well. Little counterattack coming in here. Brutes have not been turned into Fiends, so they aren't really good at chasing down all of these Bobs. And the Bobs themselves, they are still very much alive, good HP on them, which means that they can continue building these towers, and Mana is struggling more and more dealing with this. First tower cleaned up here, but the second one is still standing strong, and there's a third one under construction right now. More scouts are on the way. There's also a meat farm that has been dropped right next to that extra tower, and that meat farm might actually make things happen here. Bobs once again committing to the building. One of those Bobs are very low HP, but the rest of them are still alive, and I think this tower might actually complete once again. And indeed it does. Second tower complete. It's not going to live very, very long. That's actually a repair-o-matic. So it's just going to be there to repair temporarily, but it gets taken out. Flak cannon just dealing with some of these fiends, but ultimately should be cleaned up. But this is such a costly cleanup here for Mana. Very nice micro by Kiwian, by the way. He is doing a great job keeping these Bobs alive, and that's instrumental to his success keeping this tower rush alive. With more meat farms coming in, this is going to get eventually cleaned up here by Mana. But I feel like momentum has shifted entirely towards Kiwian here. He sacrificed probably 4-ish Bobs for this, but he forced so many meat farms, so many Shroud Stones to be dropped as well by Mana, and he also managed to kill so many troops that I feel like the value was still there. Of course, Infernals train units in a different fashion from the Vanguard, so it's a little difficult to discuss cost efficiency here. But you just being able to confine your opponent into his base, not allowing him to take these resource camps, the siege camps potentially, just any of these camps, forcing him to make a lot of these meat farms as well. This is good damage done here by Kiwian, and he is the one to expand to the third base. Like, he's the first one to expand to the third base. His opponent, not even close to dropping a third shrine. And this tower rush still stands. That is just unreal. It is so oppressive that one tower still standing with an Exo garrison inside. It's just a pain to clean up right now for Mana. And I just feel like we're going nowhere here. We are back to the drawing board. These meat farms have been cleaned up. Towers are still standing. And at the end of the day, we have 3 bases for Kiwian, just 2 for his opponent. And I just don't see a lot of numbers out here for Mana. All I see is a bunch of imps that have been pushed away from that Luminite deposit, and now with that new tower coming up, they won't even have access to that. And don't forget, alternative Luminite mines are to the front of your base for Mana. That is essentially north of his starting base, but that's fairly close to your opponent. So even if you expand towards those Luminite deposits, that is something that can be aggressed very easily by Kiwian. New brutes out there, but this might just be too much firepower to deal with. Now, they are in a Shroud Aura, so they have a lot of white health to work with, something that takes away a lot of the damage output from those towers. First tower gone. Second might be taken out here as well. Brutes doing a lot of damage to this. But Bobs are still there repairing. Second tower gone as well. Question is, can you clean up the third one? Because if you cannot, then it's just going to get rebuilt once again. Third tower still alive. Bob's trying to make a fourth one happen. And it looks like this tower will remain alive, doing a 360 no-scope. What is the tower doing? That is a big 360 no-scope if I've ever seen one. So yeah, we are once again back to the drawing board. Tower is right there. And Kiwian is going to creep up once again with another tower. And Mana just doesn't have the troops that he needs to clean this up. I feel like this tower rush has worked out perfectly for Kiwian. New Exos on the way as well, and once again this Luminite mine is being shut down. Now, Bit of a change up here, a Magmadon coming in from Mana. And I feel like now you need that stun on those Exos, otherwise they will just keep kiting you. Speaking of stun, they managed to stun one of those Exos, but not all of them. And the Magmadon once again gets repelled over here. Shroudstone helping out with a little extra firepower now, and those Exos aren't particularly tanky, so Shroudstone fire can get them taken out fairly quickly here. Mana slowly stabilizing perhaps, but that's where the Hedgehogs arrive. And those Hedgehogs, they pack a big punch. They fire in quick bursts. They are extremely mobile, which makes them very good against an army of Magmadons and Brutes. The Fiends can probably catch them, but Fiends are very fragile. In general, against this very heavy melee comp that we have from Mana, the Hedgehogs are going to be very efficient as long as he can keep kiting back. A couple of Lancers also being made over here as a melee front line. Defensive towers back at home as well. 3 bases against 2 still for Kiwian, and now he knows that he's done a lot of damage. He has slowed down the expansion of his opponent, so he's more than happy just playing a little defensive and continues to reinforce this strong position he has. Notably, this is a very valuable position as well because it's 2 Therium deposits. There is an alternative source for Therium for Mana here, but still, he's being harassed on a Luminite deposit, taken away or being denied from 2 Therium deposits as well. This aggression is doing a lot of damage, and once again, Magmadon's jumping in here on the Exos. Towers just dispatch them way too quickly. Barely any casualties on the side of Kiwian, if you think about it. Every once in a while he loses a Scout or an Exo, but casualties are minimal for the level of aggression that he's putting up. New base coming up to the north. That's going to be the 3rd base out there for Mana. Not really being aggressed right now by Kiwian. But don't forget, Kiwian can now make mechs. So I expect a couple of Hedgehogs to start rolling out and harassing this expansion. In fact, there's a little teal unit on the minimap you can see towards those 2 Luminite mines to the north of Mana's base. And that might actually be a unit that's harassing that base right now, unfortunately. Because I'm not in control of the camera, I can't really show that just yet, but hopefully we'll take a look soon. Still, look at the position of these Exos. Even if they aren't killing imps, they are denying that resource deposit, and now big flank comes in here from Mana. So many fields jumping in from the other side. Maybe catching Kiwian a little off guard over here, just 1 tower standing. And this wrap was what Mana needed to finally clean this up. But that's a lot of Lancers coming through the map, supported by the Exos, right there to hit that 3rd shrine. Looks like Mana is going to regroup now. He has had a lot of idle time on his workers, a lot of harassment done to his eco. Yeah, there is the flying dog thing, which is, I think, an ability that you can get from your command post as the Vanguard. And of course, it's just a placeholder right now, the flying dog. Anyway, looks like these Lancers, supported by the Exos, they are just too much to handle right now for Mana. He has lost a lot of troops trying to clean up that expansion, and now he might get his forward taken out here. Or it's not really a forward, it's more like an expansion DC. I guess I'm calling it DC, just my AoE 4 background in this one. It's a shrine, command post, whatever you want to call it. And that little teal dot was actually a sensor drone right next to it, so that's how Kiwian got to know that there's an expansion there. Again, little disclaimer, just as a reminder, this is still among the first games I'm casting here in Stormgate, but definitely one of the more entertaining ones as we have a push here from Kiwian. Numbers seem overwhelming though, and the Gaunts just get picked off way too quickly. Magmadons tried to stun these guys, and I actually think that they did a lot better than I expected them to do. A lot of infestation was done on these troops, but Mana just doesn't have enough here. If he could pick off a couple of those low HP troops, he could have potentially gotten a couple of more Fiends to try and snowball this, but those medtechs from the behind, they were helping quite considerably, and in the end, Kiwian is going to take game number 2 here. Alright, game number 3 coming up here. Kiwian this time around with the color purple, just to make my life confusing. Once again playing as the Vanguard. And Mana spawning in the top right is going to be playing as the Infernals once again, this time around with the color teal. So, yeah, just a little disclaimer to finish up my thought from the previous game. This is still among my first games I'm casting here in Stormgate. It's a learning curve for everybody, the players, the casters, and to be honest, even the viewers. Having said that, if you have any kind of feedback related to my casting, I am more than welcome to hearing it. And yeah, just let me know in the comments. I definitely feel like constructive criticism is extremely helpful when it comes to improving my craft, and I will do my best to listen to the feedback that I receive here. Alright, so a couple of things to note about this map that we're playing on over here. You have 4 resource camps, and they are positioned in the northeast and southwest corners. So, essentially the corners that are not populated by the players. And those will be important positions as a consequence. Now, this is also a very, very open map, and it's going to be difficult to create choke points at, especially once you start taking out some of these tree lines. Second shrine on the way here for our Infernal player, that is Mana. Still, like, it's so confusing when players change colors and you don't really have their names written anywhere, just to make it easier for me to identify by the color. Anyway, second shrine out there for Mana. And on the other side, Kiwian looks like he's going to play that approach with the scouts once again, but this time around the Brute is coming through, and this is a big deviation from what we've seen from Mana in the previous games. In the previous games, he's played a very defensive game. Now he's heading through the map with a Brute, and he is the aggressor. Low fight for a Vision Camp, and this is why, you know, we haven't really seen many of the scouts here for Kiwian. He himself changed things up, and he's opening directly with a Hedgehog. Now, I talked about this. This is a very open map, so mobility is very valuable, and there is no better thing to exploit mobility than a Hedgehog. He went straight to the max. That Hedgehog, it's going to be immensely valuable, and it's a great response to this Brute play here. Brutes are very slow, especially when you compare them to a Hedgehog. And it's something that's going to struggle catching these Hedgehogs as they will try to raid the enemy base. It's only 1 base right now for Kiwian, whereas on the other side we have 2. But of course, Hedgehogs will try to make sure that life is difficult here for Mana. For now, no split up of those Brutes into Fiends has been done. Meat farms are coming in, Meat farm and a Shroud Stone as well. So static defenses coming in here on this little plateau for Mana. But Kiwian just oppressive with these Hedgehogs. Look at the micro on them. These units, if you have good micro, you can just micro the heck out of your opponent. They are insanely responsive. And it's very, I'm not gonna say easy to hit and run because, you know, you still need good skills for that, but they're one of the best hit and run units in the game, and it's something that's being leveraged right now by Kiwian. Second base expansion coming in from Kiwian, but he might get intercepted. The command post is finished, and you can overcharge the Bobs to fight this off for the time being, but good timing here by Mana, striking the enemy, and it looks like he's just going to try to focus down that one mech bay. Also trying to focus the Habitat. Bobs trying their best to catch up overcharged. Of course, Mana doesn't want to engage this one while the Bobs are overcharged, and this is a very good diversion if you think about it. All 3 of these Hedgehogs had to be brought back to deal with a couple of these Fiends. So this kind of takes away some of the pressure from the base of Mana for the time being. Now, of course, these Hedgehogs can make their way through the map very, very quickly. And this is where we need to highlight that this Vision Camp, I think, was taken by Kiwian. He was the one with map control here. Indeed, this is Kiwian's Vision Camp that is just now being taken out by Mana to deprive his opponent from vision. But that also means that Kiwian knows exactly that the Brutes are here. He's trying to pick off some of them. And once again, some of the Brutes are split up into Fiends. Rinse and repeat is the recipe right now for Mana. He's trying to use these fiends as a tool of pulling back the enemy hedgehogs all the way into the base of Kiwian. And to be frank, it's working. So far, Kiwian isn't able to aggress his enemy because he is just preoccupied chasing down all these fiends that are trying to raid his base. Hedgehogs once again cleaning this one up, but pressure is being taken away from the base of Mana, who is now expanding towards a third shrine to the north. No third base just yet here for Kiwian, but I see a couple of bobs moving south, so that will soon change. Indeed, third command post on the way. Hedgehogs will once again come in, and you get the feeling that Mana's gonna try this for the third time as well. He sees the Hedgehogs move in, he's going to split off some of his fiends, send it to the other side, and just make sure that his opponent has to chase those raiding units instead of actually attacking the base. This choke point is going to be defended by double Shroud Stones meat farm as well. And in general, Mana is still staying true to that mindset that he had in the previous two games, playing a defensive game with the Infernals, or semi-defensive, I should say. He's using a lot of static defenses, just trying to control these choke points for the time being. And to be fair, these Hedgehogs weren't really able to do much of a damage so far. So, good job, I feel like, by Mana, kind of eliminating this high mobility threat that Kiwian has put out. Three bases for both of these players. I'm not sure what we are looking at right now. But our observer is actually showing... I guess the burst rockets might be the thing that's being shown. Anyway, big shout out again to Frost Giant for providing raw feeds of these games. We've received these recordings as a whole, and we are allowed to cast. So, yeah, thanks for Frost Giant, and thanks to Biomorph, who is also a fellow Stormgate commentator. He's mostly in StarCraft otherwise, and I think he was the one observing this. So, big shout out for his work as well. Obviously, this was done in collaboration with Frost Giant Time. Low counterattack with the Brutes over here. Bob's being overcharged. Brutes not willing to commit as they face a couple of Lancers. No split up into Fiends just yet. Bob's willing to take this fight, but that's going to be a lot of Bobs getting taken out here. At the same time, Hedgehogs also taking out one of those expansion bases as the Brutes are trying to just leave this fight while the Bobs are overcharged and then come back once the overcharge is gone. Defensive tower coming in here for Kiwian. At the same time, Mana lost his expansion base over here. Imps kind of trapping these Hedgehogs in the corner though, and it looks like those Fiends and the Imps are actually able to clean this up pretty much. It's still a costly fight when you consider that they have to fight into the choke points, but this is as good as it gets when it comes to chasing down those Hedgehogs. You just got rid of all these Hedgehogs, while at the same time pushing away your opponent from that third Luminite deposit. So, great job. I really love this counterattack here by Mana. And he still has a lot of Brutes to work with, so we're down to just 2 bases from each of these players, but it is Mana who has the standing army. Lots of Bobs overcharging to try and fight this off, but for the time being, this attack is not going to continue any further here for Mana. Still, you get the feeling that he is in a much better position than he was in, let's say, 4 or 5 minutes ago. And this is actually a very reminiscent game to game number 1, where he's playing somewhat defensive, though in this game he was definitely more aggressive than in game number 1. But again, the principles are the same, playing a defensive-ish game with the Infernals, and then just snowballing the game off the back of a strong economy. Of course, mass units of Vulcan gets taken out here. There was a Vulcan, took out quite a lot of these Fiends, but at the end of the day, that Vulcan is taken out, and the second wave of Fiends is devastating here. New Hedgehogs are being added, but those troops have to micro backwards. They are not really good when it comes to standing and fighting. Lancer is also being mixed in here, but they're just getting surrounded by all these Fiends, and this is once again a wave that's going to be cleaned up by Kiwian, but there might be a new wave coming in very soon. The third base was rebuilt, by the way, by Mana, so Now he's steadily on 3 bases compared to just 2 from Kiwian. But I expect Kiwian to move to the south once again, now that he's cleaned up this aggression. So that 3rd base is going to be there for him as well. But he did lose quite a lot of Bobs, if I can recall correctly. So you gotta wonder how, eco numbers, how army numbers are looking like. Of course, it's not something that's currently visible in the spec UI. Hopefully that's something that's gonna get updated very soon, because I feel like we are deprived of a lot of numerical information, and my casting style relies very heavily on looking at numbers and interpreting them. So, yeah, I mean, would be nice to see those. Not right now. Some Golans have been mixed in here by Mana. So this is where he can start spreading the infestation, and with some Magmadons jumping in as well, stunning the Vulcan. That is a really good fight here for Mana. Infestation comes in, and that is huge. That is what you really want in this fight. Turn those Bobs into fiends of your own, and the Vulcan just getting surrounded, slowly getting taken out. And once again, defense is it's troublesome right now for Kiwian. His 3rd base is once again getting taken out, and he is going to lose this command post. He just doesn't have a single troop here that's defending it. Well, outside that one Lancer, but he's gone. So no 3rd Luminite deposit here for Kiwian. And on the other side, once again, these Brutes are coming in, this time around with Magmadons. And that stun ability from the Magmadons is going to come in very, very handy. But looks like we might just have Mana moving out towards the resource deposits to the north. I think those resource camps are now once again available. He's actually using a couple of troops to take them, I feel. I can't see them right now, and I'm not in control of the camera, of course, but he has a couple of troops to the north, close to those resource camps, trying to push into the base of the enemy over here. Magmadons are not particularly fast, so you can technically chase them with your Hedgehogs. And that is a 4th base to the south, by the way, by Mana. So now he's playing aggressive, confining his opponent into the enemy base. Somewhat similar to what Kiwian has done to him in the previous game. Just position yourself in front of the enemy base, keep him pinned inside his base, and while that's happening, you expand towards additional bases. This time around, he's facing a quite significant force over here, but he has infested a lot of these troops, and more Magmadons are coming in to jump and stun, and that's where momentum might be swinging in the favor of Mana, and Kiwian types GG, taps out of game number 3, with Mana taking this one. And with that, of course, this set ends as well, so this is where I have to say thank you for watching this set with me. Once again, little disclaimer, this is still among my very first casts of the game, so bear with me. I, of course, welcome any feedback that you might have related to my commentary. Hopefully you've enjoyed. If you did, please consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel. Those metrics help me a lot. And, come back sometime in the future as well to see more Stormgate videos alongside, I'm not going to say primary content, but with me being from AoE 4 primarily, I'm also putting out casts of that as well, but I will obviously focus a lot on Stormgate in the coming months as well. So stay tuned. Thank you so much for watching. Again, any feedback is welcome, and I will hopefully see you in the next cast.